Hello everybody and welcome to the Season 17 recap video for Treaty United Building a Nation over on Twitch, which of course you can catch live right about now. If you have been enjoying the series up to this point, of course drop a like, that would be most helpful. Just lets me know you want to keep doing them, helps out with the algorithm and stuff, you'd be amazed. And of course the full VODs are available on the second channel, link in the description if you want to catch them over there. So I'd say this has probably been the most intriguing year we've had in this save to date at this point. There's been a lot of movers and shakers this season and a lot of big things have happened, which you're going to learn about of course in today's video. But before any of that, we want to talk about youth intakes. Let's get cracking. Yeah, you thought we were going to get someone. I led you to believe we were going to get someone good there, didn't I? But no, it's Paul Kiley. This was the best prospect from our youth intake for the year. He's fine. He's fine. Maybe. I don't know. It's not spectacular, is it really? It's sort of just the situation we've been in lately. No matter what we do, we just don't seem to get anybody that's intriguing me in a youth intake for a very, very long time. We've tried changing our head of youth development. We can't upgrade our youth facilities anymore. Our recruitment's maxed out. Basically, everything we've done all the best practices to try and get some good youth intakes, and at the moment, just ain't really happening for us. But one of these days, I'll come to you with good news. It just ain't this year. But who cares about that? Because you want to see who we've actually signed, of course. And we're going to get onto that in a second. I'll talk to you about the loan farm after that. Because, of course, when we do sign a load of players, half of them end up going into the loan farm straight away anyway. And the loan farm this year has been extremely prosperous, I must say. So let's get into some signings and also some sales. And the first of those sales was Ahmed Akman. And you might be thinking, that seems like a very strange sale to make, Matt. And you'd be right. But there was logic in my decision here. Now, basically what happened was, towards the start of the window, we were in a bit of a predicament where we were no longer considered rich by our board because of a reputation bump that we'd got, which meant that the threshold for rich had then been improved. And little tip here, if you get a board like ours, i.e. scoundrels, if you're not considered rich by the standard thing on your club's page, they will sell your players no matter what you do. There is no way of stopping them. They will just keep trying to sell your players and accepting offers over your head. The only way we found to stop it with the board that we have is to be considered rich. It's not happened once when we have that rich tag. But of course, with the reputation bump, the threshold for rich goes up by £15 million because reasons. So as a result, we decided that we needed to make a decision, and that was to try and get ourselves back into that position of being rich again. So we decided that the one player that we felt that we could actually weirdly leave without was Ahmed Akman. The reason for that was because his contract was going to be up at the end of the season, we needed to try to cash in now, and he wasn't going to sign a new contract with us, all that general garbs. So we put the feelers out and the bids started flying in for him. Originally, the bids were around about £19 million, which is what he eventually did move for to Nice of all people. What a weird transfer it was, honestly, for him to go to Nice of all the clubs that were interested in him, but that's what happened. It was a 19.75 or 18, it was around £19 million was the eventual sale. Could have been more, honestly, but that's how it goes, except we got a weird problem with that. And that problem was as follows. Once we got these bids ready to go and we're basically stalling, ready to sort of see what else we could get and offer clubs out, we had a meeting with Admiral Akman trying to say that he wanted to leave, basically, which is like, well, yeah, we're trying to do that for you already, bruv. But then we got that lovely pop-up you get where it says, hey, what sort of price would you want to sell me for? So we said the price that he was already being bid on at, because you know that seems reasonable. If clubs are bidding that price for you, that's the price we're happy to sell you for. But no, he was unhappy with that. He wanted us to sell him for £9 million when we'd already accepted bids of £19 million. Not really a big deal, you might think, because the market's clearly there. Except no, because the moment we got out of that meeting, despite not agreeing to that price, no club would bid any more than the price that he wanted in that meeting, despite us not agreeing to it. So it meant that in the end, we were basically forced to sell him to one of the three clubs that bid originally, because no other club would put a bid in that was anywhere near the original prices. Really, really strange with that one, but it appears that those meetings have a much bigger effect than you might think they do. Luckily, we'd stalled those offers and didn't just outright reject them, because that would have put us in a real pickle. But needless to say, that then left us in a much more financially stable point of view, and it got us through the rest of the window. Or did it? Spoiler alert, it didn't. So around this sort of time as well, we also sold Mate Maganic to Arsenal for, I believe it was £6 million, but we took an extra like £3.5 million again on top of the deal as part of a clause. So they ended up paying us nearly £10 million for the deal, just to get a bit of extra cash in to make sure, because we were just trying to push our wages up, our value up as much as possible at this point, so we could still sign a few players, but also not run the risk of the board selling the players we actually wanted to keep. That was why we sold our best player. Again, more on that in a minute. And that had worked. We were back considered rich again, and all was well, until it wasn't. This is honestly possibly more irksome than the Juliet sale, the sale of Zlatko Šavrić, honestly. So basically what happened was, it's February 2nd at this point. We are basically out of most of the major transfer windows, except probably in this case Germany, although maybe there were others. I think it was just Germany that was open at this point. And on the 2nd of February, we'd literally just sold Mate Maganic the day before, and then this happened. So basically what happened is, on that day, we must have fallen like £1 below the threshold for rich. But bearing in mind at the time, we had no idea what that threshold was because there's no way of knowing. And the board took that opportunity to sell Jibril Deer out from underneath us for £14 million. This player, probably our brightest prospect, was sold for £14 million. And now he's at Bayern. And let's be honest, he's not worth that. If we tried to buy him off Bayern, one, he wouldn't come. Two, they'd probably want about £90 million. It's just stuff like... And bear in mind that meant we couldn't replace him either because last day of the window. Just really, really shit, honestly. And so we vowed at that point that we would never again let the club's financial situation fall below rich because it's just guaranteed to lose all of your players. The hilarious thing, of course, is the board have a club vision thing that says sign high reputation players. It's like, mate, I'd love to, but every time I try to do that, you just sell all of our youth prospects, so maybe not. Needless to say, we were somewhat angry. Very, very angry indeed. And I'd pretty much had enough of FM at that point to a certain extent because it was just outrageous. And we were still having some issues with the whole stage of my career crap when we tried to sign players, which certainly shouldn't have been applied to us anymore. But whatever. More on that in a second, though, because that, in fact, I'll just tell you now. Basically, I suspect there was a slight bug in our game caused by a note I had put on an agent 13 years ago. Some of you that watch the streams will know him as Giga Chad Jackson Mills. I put a note on him, so every 6 months we'd have a look at his clients. Randomly, when I was thinking about things to do with agents that might cause this random bug about every player saying that they didn't want to join us at this stage in his career, and I mean basically every player that was a viable signing, that you think, why wouldn't they join me? Because then they'd join a much worse club. Was all saying that, basically. Then, I took the note off of him, because I thought, oh, it's the only thing related to agents. Took the note off of the guy, and boom, he disappeared. The agent just disappeared. Like, he was no longer searchable. I could no longer find the agent in the database of the game the moment I removed that note from him. It was one of the weirdest things I've witnessed. But since then, things do seem to have been evening out a little bit, and we're certainly not seeing that same statement anywhere near as much as we were before. It's now much more varied, and yeah, players don't always want to join us, but at least it gives a more valid reason for it, whereas before it was saying the same thing every single time. Really, really weird bug. So if you do ever encounter that for some reason, take any notes off of agents, I guess. Weird, though. But now, on to some more. Giovanni Tortosa also left to go to Benfica. It wasn't a decision I was particularly proud of, but we had no choice. He was one of the few that wouldn't extend his contract and hadn't wanted to for a while, and there was very little we can do other than sell him. 3.4 million is not enough, and we did take a loss. We technically didn't because he was a free transfer, but you know, we love Tortosa, and it would have been it was a shame to see him go, sadly. In the summer, I had a similar situation with Barry Cunningham. Now, I was kind of planning on letting Barry Cunningham's contract expire anyway and seeing where he went, but I did try to offer him a new deal, but the problem was he was on £2,000 a week here. I then tried to offer him a new deal, and he wanted £22,000 a week as an impact sub, and to that I said, Barry, go away. And he did go away. He went to Leeds United in the Premier League of all places, actually. So fair one. It shows you that a squad player for us is good enough to play for Leeds in the Premier League, and he has made 20 appearances for them this season. So clearly there's a quality there. I did still get 1.3 million out of Leeds for the deal, so not the end of the world. And the final sort of sale amongst all those sales was Florian Weiss. I sent him off to Colne for but just under £5 million. The main reason with this was we could never seem to get him on loan to any other Irish sides, not since his spell at St Pat's that one season. He had a spell at Greuther Fürth, which was good, but we kind of just needed to cash in because I wanted to make sure that our financial status was better coming into the summer months, because the last thing we wanted is to be approaching the main transfer window for all the big European sides sat there on stable finances. Not even stable, sorry, secure finances. Because that would be silly, wouldn't it? You wouldn't want to just be secure. So he went for 4.9 million as well, tried to boost that number up a little bit, and we did get through that whole period. It's considered rich, because at one point I think we had 72 million in the bank, and I think the threshold's about 45 million, we think, for rich now. That could change, obviously, but we're well above it, although our finances have dropped a bit lately, as you'll see, because of other things. But now, on to ins, which is much more exciting. This player, perhaps not so much. This is Diogo Vitor, £7,000. We picked him up from Atletico Mineiro because £7,000. He's not spectacular, but he did go straight into the loan farm. Can't really complain. Next up, Michael Docheck, £750,000 in total, 500 up front, another like $250,000 after he plays 50 league games. Don't think that's very likely. He was another loan farm option. I was really just trying to focus on cheap deals, basically. Is he wanted by someone? Who's he wanted by? Please tell me it's a domestic club. That'd be kind of cool. It is. Nice. Excellent. That's good. Hopefully we can get him out on loan for them. That'd be good, actually. But yeah, we were just trying to pick up a few little cheap deals, because there's been mostly cheap deals this year. I say mostly. Rodrigo Pereira came in from Independiente. You can see we were starting to be able to sign these guys again now. £2.8 million. I think he's going to leave sooner rather than later, and if we can get like 5 million for him, I'd happily take that, flip him, get that profit, and keep ourselves financially stable again. He basically got all of these, like the goal and the 3 assists, I'm fairly certain came in his first game for the club, and he didn't contribute anything for the rest of the season, but oh well. Next up was the biggest outlay of the entire time. This is Alexander Lindbergh. He cost £7.5 million from Brøndby, but when we saw him, we knew that we had to take a plunge on this guy. He is ridiculous. Only 7 goals and 4 assists this year, but he has scored some absolute bangers for us this season, and I think he's basically the ideal midfield partner to Thijs Friese or the Donut. The best thing about him as well is he's good on both feet too. He kind of just does a little bit of everything. He's still only 19, 6 caps for Denmark. For £7.5 million, we couldn't not do it. Now that he has those caps, of course, his wage has gone through the roof a little bit, but I think he's an absolutely stunning player, and he's going to be an absolutely brilliant option for us in that midfield as a first team choice. Despite the fact we've got some outrageous ones out on loan, he's been a fantastic backup this year. The fact that a player of this quality is our backup centre midfielder shows you the depth we've got in that role. Still would like more though. Next up is Haijun Wan. Now the main reason we signed him is because he was available for 170 grand from Sao Paulo, and you can see from his value there that it was a good decision. Now, we didn't really know where we were going to put him, but we wanted to sign him anyway. The fact that we got him out on loan to St. Pat's was probably a stroke of luck, really, in the fact that he then went on to score 22 goals in 24 games for St. Pat's in half a season. He joined them midway through the year, and his goals single-handedly kept them in the top flight, with those 13 and 16 for them in the league. He also scored 9 goals in the Cup when they reached the final, and was the top scorer in the tournament. So the guy's clearly talented, and seems to work really well in the match engine for whatever reason. So very excited to see if we can get him out on loan to someone else next season. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to go back to St. Pat's, but hopefully someone will take him because he's clearly very, very good, just maybe not quite good enough for us. Our last big outlay was Paulo Vinicius. This is he from, again, Atletico Mineiro. Being able to sign these guys finally, which is really nice. £6.5 million. But the thing for him, I think he is finally going to be the guy that unseats Emmett Doran as our starting striker for a consistent period of time. He's only been here a year, but in 29 matches, he's banged 25 goals, 17 in the league as well, 4 in the Champions League. You can see that there's a quality player here. And it got to the point where if I was starting Emmett Doran, I'd sometimes bring Vinicius off the bench and he'd start scoring goals. Used to be the other way around when we were trying to throw strikers in. He's quick. He's got decent finishing. His composure's solid. He's only 19. He will be homegrown, if I recall, as well. I think there's just a lot to like about this guy. Still has the 5-star potential. He's consistent. I think Paulo Vinicius is probably, touch wood anyway, going to be our long-term striker for us that we could have for like a decade, provided the board don't do anything silly. I think he could be the guy that we could win Champions Leagues with up front, provided he continues to develop at the rate that he has been. Lots of improvements this year we've already seen, particularly his decisions and anticipation. I think they're both up by like 3 in just 1 year. So there's definitely huge gains to be made there, and I really, really like this guy. We also brought in Vitor Oliveira from Liverpool on a loan deal for the year, because obviously with us losing Jibril Dia, we weren't able to replace him very quickly, so I had to quickly dip into the other market, especially when losing Barry Cunningham, to make sure we had a left back this season other than just the Carp. Carpenter is still here, thank Christ. But luckily we got Vitor Oliveira from Liverpool, paying £8 a week in his wages, which is his entire wage, by the way, I think, or it certainly was at the time. And he's been solid for us this year. 14 appearances, nothing spectacular, but he's done the job for us. I have extended his loan. You haven't seen it here, but in the actual full save, he's had his loan extended for another season, just to make sure we got that covered. I think he's solid, and it will just kind of cover over the cracks until we can find a permanent replacement. And the last of the signings is one of the ones I'm most proud of, honestly. This is Nicholas Deutinger. He was released by Bayern Munich. This man cost us no pounds. No, this was a free signing, and he's immediately worth 8 to 12 million pounds. I mean, I could flip him right now, honestly, and just take the money. If someone's interested, I would be potentially tempted to do that, to be fair, just because of the sheer value that we could get out of a deal like that. You can make so much money just by taking the cast-offs of teams like Bayern Munich, especially in this save, but also Milan and Inter, and just flipping them for a couple of million quid like 6 months later. There's definitely money to be made like that. But I think he's actually a really, really talented midfielder. I just don't know if he'd quite really fit into what we're trying to do here. But needless to say, he's a spectacularly good option. And if someone did come in with the right bid for him, I'd be very tempted to, even if they only came in with like a £5 million bid, I'd take a 5 with a 50% of next sale fee clause, because just send it back to Bayern again, probably, I suspect. But yeah, really happy with that. Now, there are a few other signings that are for the future, but you will see those in next year's video as well, because most of them are just sort of like little freebies and stuff that will join us at the end of the season. But if you want to see those guys, hop over to stream right now and you can ask me, because there's a particularly good Mexican right winger that you might be quite interested in. He's very, very good indeed. Right then. I guess it's time we get stuck into our league season, which went about as well as you could really expect. Off to an absolute flyer, won an enormous amount of matches up until, well, Dundalk. Yeah, that unbeaten season is still not going to happen to us. Had to rotate matches around. It happens. In fact, I believe both of our defeats in the league this season were to Dundalk, which should show you that they are definitely improving, which is part of the reason they've got so many loan players. In fact, speaking of loan players, we currently have 33 players out on loan at the moment from the club. Alonso, of course, the top scorer of those, still at Dundalk. But you'll notice Dundalk have got a lot of them. They've got Stephenson as well. Gauthier is obviously still at Bose. They've got Vigors. They've got Vukovic. They've got Lozano. They've got Salgado and Demiri as well. There's a reason Dundalk are doing so well at the moment, and I think it's because they're taking our players. It's great. It's exactly what we want. But you can see that there's so many players out on loan, all of which I believe are to... Oh, other than Orlando Martins, who's on loan at Southampton. I had to do it just to keep him happy. He'll be back next season, though, just to keep him happy. But yeah, we've got 33 out on loan at the moment, 32 of which are 2 domestic sides, which is very, very good. I hope to improve that next year. It might drop a little bit because some of them are youth players that probably aren't that good, so they might just get released back into the wild, and we'll end up joining these guys anyway. But with a load of new players joining, I suspect that we'll get this number back up again, hopefully to someone other than Dundalk, but I do quite like giving them the players because it's made them extremely good, as you would have seen last season. But as for the league itself, yeah, I mean, 2 defeats, both the Dundalk. Where was that ridiculous game? Yeah, here. We had a game against Derry City where we were rotating. This was a rotated squad as well because we were preparing for a European fixture. Treaty United 8, Derry City 6. One of the most outrageous matches I think I've ever seen on Football Manager. Vinicius got 4 in this one. Imagine scoring 6 times in a game and still losing by more than 1 goal. Unbelievable match. I just couldn't... Barto got a 7.3 despite conceding 6 goals. I think Derry had like 27 shots on target in this game. It was unbelievable. And we are now finally in our new stadium, as you can see, the Dara Galvin Memorial Ground. Getting some lovely attendances in it, actually. Very, very happy with that. And in the end, won the league with 98 points, plus 101 goal difference. But look how far Dundalk were clear. Dundalk's 83 points this season, with a plus 47 goal difference, would have won them the title in multiple seasons in this save, by a considerable margin, in fact. In fact, I believe there was one year where we won it with like 59 points or something absurd like that. Maybe not as low as that, but it was pretty damn low. So they're having a cracking year. 21 points clear of third they were, despite finishing 15 points behind us. That's how good they are as the second place side. Bows are very comfortably the third best side in Ireland as well, as you can see. Mostly the goal differences is the way to tell. They finished 7 clear of Shamrock Rovers, who then of course finished clear of Cork City. Nice to see Cork back in Europe as well. That could be helpful for us. Shelburne were eventually relegated, although St Pat's gave it a bloody good go at getting relegated. Luckily, the goals of Wan kept them up. Despite winning only 4 matches all season, the amount of draws they got were enough to keep them up in the league. Shelburne were terrible, but nearly survived just on account of a couple of 1-0 victories. St Pat's do, of course, survive in the end, beating 9-2 against Finn Harps. I believe Wan scored 7 goals in that, playoff tie alone. That's how good he was for them in that second half of the year. It is ridiculously good as well. You'll see Unai Alonso top scorer with 19, Vinicius with 17, and of course Thijs Fries, the top assister, with 13 goals. Lovely stuff. What you really want to know is Europe. Because if you remember last season, we got ourselves a rather plum draw in the Europa League after coming third in our group against Red Star Belgrade. So let's go and have a look at what happened there. To the surprise of nobody, we beat them home and away. 2-1 and 3-1. Comfortable through to the next round. Then, though, it was up against Sporting. Hammered them 3-0. And then went to Portugal and put 3 goals past them there too. A 6-1 win sent us through to the quarterfinals. Good news. In that quarterfinal, madness. 5-0 victory against Porto with Espen Falkenhorst, a couple for Mate, Doran on the score sheet as well. And then in the away leg as well, we went out to Portugal again. A brace from Emmett Doran gave us a 7-1 victory on aggregate and through to the Europa League semi-finals, which of course we played against Galatasaray of all teams, got a 1-0 victory in Turkey, followed up with a 0-0 at home, scraping through 1-0 on aggregate to our second ever Europa League final. Now, of course, we've been there once before. You saw what happened last time. We lost to Milan in the final, 5 years to the day practically, and we were losing one of the best seasons ever this year, in fact. And us reaching it managed to actually cancel out the loss that we were receiving, and thus no coefficient hit, which is very important. So then we had the final, and what a bloody final it was. We won. We won the Europa League. 2-1 over Juventus, thoroughly deserved in the end. So the way this worked basically was Juventus got a red card after 85 minutes. They should have had a red card for this after 81 minutes when Chadiel Bichiabu brought down our player when he was clean through on goal with nobody else around him and somehow only got a yellow card. It wasn't like it was a penalty or anything. He should have gone. But then 5 minutes later, he was sent off for his second yellow, which meant that going into extra time, we then knew that up against 10 men, we could do it because they went to a really narrow system and we just dominated them for extra time. Thijs Fries scored a penalty for us in the 94th minute after the donut was fouled in the box, and I thought at that point it's just a case of bish bash bosh, done, because we were dominating them. And then we conceded one of those stupid penalties from corners where you get a push given basically, and Kang In Lee equalised for Juventus completely against the run of play. At this point we were dominating, but then in the 104th minute, Espen Falkenhorst put a ball across, Juanjo Diaz at the back post, 2-1 Treaty United. We held on and won the Europa League, which of course meant pot 1 for the Champions League this season, and that is a big deal because in our group we got Chelsea, Hoffenheim and Lyon. And we started off emphatically with a 4-1 trashing of Hoffenheim. It could have been 5. Thijs Fries actually missed a penalty. Vinicius with the hat-trick, Alaku in there too. Tobias Bremer, the Hoffenheim goalkeeper had, as much as it said he had a 7.6 because he did save a penalty, he was awful. Basically, every goal seemed to be his fault in this game, and we absolutely obliterated Hoffenheim with a 4-1 victory. And then it got even better for us. A 2-2 draw at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. What a start. We were a goal down, obviously, with Belfiore, but Thijs Friese equalised for us. He then missed a penalty at the start of the second half, which would have given us the lead. Vulcan does what Vulcan does and puts Chelsea back in front, but then a Palanek Mate header from a corner in the 89th minute gave us a crucial draw at Stamford Bridge, which would have meant a lot for us for the rest of this group, because we were not expecting that, but what a performance from the guys. We then followed it up with a relatively straightforward victory over Lyon. The donut and Paolo Vinicius grabbing the goals. Fayette got one back for Lyon late on, but it wasn't enough, and we were suddenly on 7 points from 3 games. And then the away leg was literally identical. Palanek Mate and Thijs Friese with a double whammy of goals gave us the lead 2-0 before 20 minutes. Then a late one from Guillaumin wasn't enough to get Lyon back in the game, and suddenly we'd won 3 out of 4, 10 points on the board. We're level pegging with Chelsea, both of us with 10 points. We were technically in front on account of goal difference, I think, at that point, or the head-to-head or whatever. But still, very, very tight indeed. We then went away to Germany and absolutely did the job. One of the best performances in Europe we've had ever in this save. 4.75 XG from this game. Spack, Mate, Diaz grabbing goals for us. On top of that, Alaku, and then finally a Thijs Friese penalty in the 87th minute wrapped up a 5-0 battering of Hoffenheim. And this is key because it gave us a better goal difference than Chelsea, and that could make a big difference if we were to draw against Chelsea in our other game. That extra goal right at the end gave us a 1-goal difference advantage over them. But sadly, it was not to be. Gutting, honestly. We played a blinder here. Thijs Friese gave us the lead in the 9th minute. They got the equaliser through Alejandro Vulcan, and, well, it didn't go too well for them after that. Vulcan scored another one. Asane Fall got another one for Chelsea before Lindbergh got one back for us in the 65th minute. We should have won this match. We were the better side on the night against Chelsea here, and should have won. Lindbergh had a couple of chances after that. I think Vinicius had another chance too. We had the opportunities to win this match, and we should have won it. It's a real shame. The draw, though, would have been enough for us to win the group. That's the worst thing. If we'd have just drawn this game, we'd have been group winners. And we weren't. We couldn't quite do it. But I think we really are seeing now that we can take on some of the best teams in the world. That Chelsea team is stacked to high heaven, and we took them on, as you can see here. 17 goals, though, scored in this group is bloody excellent, really. And, well, I mean, it would have been fantastic. And also 13 points is the most we've ever had in a Champions League group. So really, really happy with that indeed. However, because the game hates us, we've got Man United in the next round. Yeah. However, had we won the group, well, Chelsea got drawn against Atletico. Now, whether we would have done because of the way things work, maybe not, but I think we would have done. So, yeah, it's not great, really, for us. And I think we'll be out as soon as we can say Treaty United, unfortunately. So it might end up being a poor season, despite feeling like a really good season. But that's just how coefficients do. Now, other Irish sides. It's been a strong year. Dundalk are very good. They dispatched Dynamo Kiev 4-2 on aggregate to get through one round. Into the third qualifying round, they got Red Star. Beat them 3-2 on aggregate, actually. A little bit tight, to be fair. A 3-1 victory and a 1-0 defeat. But then there was just no question about it. Once they got through there, a 5-1 hammering of Lille on aggregate. A 3-1 and a 2-0 battered them. And through they went to the group stages for the second season. They've almost got too good too quickly. Whereas before, with last year's Building a Nation with Tromsø, we had sides that were decent, but they weren't amazing yet. Whereas Dundalk have got a bit too good, and it's to the point now where they're just getting into the Champions League groups every year, but not being able to do much because they're not good enough to do much in those groups at the moment. And that's actually costing us coefficients, but at the very least, it is allowing Dundalk to accumulate mad amounts of money and make some really, really good signings. So if they don't qualify, so for example, say they end up in the Europa League next year, I think they'd actually have a genuine shot at getting through their group and actually winning some games. Or if they were in the Conference League, holy God, what could they do in the Conference League? But they'd have to drop down a lot for that to happen, so it seems unlikely. As for their group itself, they actually did acquit themselves pretty well. 3 points from the group, no wins, but no losses, 3 losses. But 3 draws, not too bad. 0-0 against Dortmund and Inter, including an away draw against Dortmund, and then a 1-1 draw away at Hibs. The problem being that the 1-1 draw they did get away at Hibs was yet again the result of them conceding a goal in stoppage time. 95th minute, Hibs equaliser. Dundalk should have won that match. They should have won that game. They should be sat here potentially with an opportunity to, well, I don't think they would have gone through because they would have lost a head-to-head battle, technically. But still, they could have been on 5 points now and got a result there too. It's really kind of crazy how they still managed to get some okay results, though. And it was still little coefficient point bonuses that we needed. As for the Europa League, unfortunately, our representation in that was Skamrock Rovers, got hammered 7-1 by Lask. As for the Conference League, Derry City did knock out Torpedo, which is very good of them, but then were knocked out comfortably by Vitesse in the next round. And St. Pat's actually did do the double, home and away, against Istanbul Başakşehir, so that's actually a very strong result, considering they were bottom of the league at the time and didn't have our striker at them yet. And lastly, in the fourth qualifying round, Shamrock Rovers were knocked out by Hearts, which is a shame, and then St. Pat's were knocked out by Kolos, so again, massive shame. Disappointment, really, not to have any sides in any of the lower Europa competitions, and I think that's what's really cost us this year, because coefficient-wise, we're doing okay. we're actually still underachieving, and it looks like we are going to have a negative points this year, which is a shame when you consider how well we've done, but it's really just because we've been unable to compete with the others, really. There's been no representation in the lower Europa competitions. Bohemian not being in Europe at all is the biggest loss to us this year. That won't probably happen again, but it's going to cost us, really. But at the very least, we have still got the chance this year. Well, actually, we haven't still got the chance. We are now above the Czech Republic. So that's good. And Austria currently have yet to overtake us. It was Austria were catching us, and we were both catching the Czech Republic. So as things stand, we would technically move up a spot in the coefficients this year into 12th spot, despite actually losing a good season. Well, you know what I mean? Not having the best of years, honestly, compared to the 11 points we achieved last year for winning the Europa League. But if we could just get a couple of Irish sides in those group stages a bit more regularly, I think that's when things will really start to turn on. Or if we got Dundalk in one of those group stages that aren't the Champions League, they've got the money to sustain themselves without it for a season. They could actually clean up in the Conference League. I think they could go really, really deep. And I mean, if they're getting points in their Champions League groups, to me, they should be capable of winning a Europa Conference League group and maybe going quite deep into the tournament. But it's just about them actually doing that, because they'd have to lose 2 consecutive Champions League ties just to even get down to that point, and I think it's very unlikely that they will at this point. But what can you do, really? In case you're wondering, Irish national team currently sitting 11th in the world, which is bloody fantastic for them, honestly. They've already been to what was it? I think it was a cup. No, I can't remember. I think it was the final? That's right. They were the runner-up in the Euros. It was England versus Ireland in the Euro final, and they lost on penalties. The even more hilarious thing is, look at the 4 semi-finalists. England, Spain, Scotland, and Ireland were the semi-finalists, and Ireland knocked out Spain in Portugal, which is some result for them, really. So our plan today over on stream is that, well, this is the financial situation. Now, you'll notice no, it's not. It will be like 55 million, because unfortunately some stuff has happened with tax stuff that has caused us to drop a load of money. So we may still have to make a couple of sales, but we've still got enough money in the bank to go after a few signings, and we've got plenty of people. We've got 500 players on a big list that we can slowly work through. So it's going to be a big old game of smash or pass over on stream today. So I hope you will join me over there for that. Now, before we go, I just want to kind of show you a little rundown of the big statistical out from this season as far as the players go. So you can see we've still got basically everyone here is still here. Jan Vostrek's come in and done okay, actually, in fairness to us. If you look at goals scored, Emmett Doran's still technically top scorer. Thijs Fries contributes another 27 goals. What a guy. He is outrageous. 25 for Vinicius. Obviously, those are all loan signings there. Falkenhorst with 14 goals too. Diaz with 13. Mate as well with 11. Very, very nice to see as well. Alaku with 8. The Donut with 8. These two could definitely do with contributing a little bit more. In fairness, I think they should have more goals than they do. And I'd like to see them step it up a little bit, particularly when you've got the likes of Lindbergh knocking about. I don't know where Lindbergh's actually gone at the moment, but he'll be around here somewhere. Doing okay. And as far as assists goes, 24 assists for Thijs Fries, 17 for Falkenhorst, but also Mihai Alaku with 17 assists to his name as well. That's a really strong number, and it shows that Trek role is really suiting him a lot. Even 14 assists for Tom Howcroft this year, the 31-year-old, still doing mad things for us this season. Stojanovic with 12 assists to go to his name as well. Millie with a decent amount, but less games played. Then again, he did start 29 matches still, so there is that as well. Jovetic is still contributing. There's still a hell of a team that we've got here with lots of young talent. There's Lindbergh, yeah. 7 goals for Lindbergh, but off of a much lower XG. I think there's a real talent in there that could overtake someone like the Donut in the next couple of seasons and become a real starting presence for us, because he just scores goals. He's very, very good indeed. So that concludes season 17 of the Treaty United recap. Now, obviously, over on stream right now, we're going to be doing signings, doing all sorts of lovely stuff. You know the drill. It's going to be fun. Now, we might get to the Man United game. I don't know, because it's Champions League. It's usually further away. But let's face it, even if we do get there, we're probably going to get binned out anyway. Maybe there's a chance, but Juliet's going to score a hat-trick against us and then break our hearts by celebrating. That's what I can suspect. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this, and I hope you have, drop a like. That'd be so bloody perb. If there are any things you want me to show that maybe I keep skipping over, do let me know. I will try to make a note of it, but I can't promise anything. Yeah, if you've enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I'll see you over on Twitch in a moment. Yeah, hope you have a great Saturday. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.